I They are just the gift that keeps on giving. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show from here in Leverkusen. I hope the audio is okay. I hope you can hear me. I hope you can see me. And I hope that everything is good and well in your world, of course, as well. But yes, you join me the morning after what was a hilarious night of football in the Champions League for many reasons from an Arsenal perspective. And we didn't even play. So, it's been a good night where you can laugh about football and you've not even played. I think that's the pinnacle, isn't it? That is really what you want to see from from a Champions League night. But good morning to you all. Thank you so much as always for joining me, and really appreciate you listening and tuning in. As I say, apologies for any issues audibly. Apologies for any issues visually. It's not the same as what it is usually, but I'm doing my best with what I've got in a very different place. So good morning to those of you joining us in the chat. John, good morning to you, to Logan, to Prince, to Steve. We got Claire and Barry. We got Paul and Jamale. We've got Natty Tom, Black Shine, Roy, Canoe. We got Paul. We got Pisang. We've got Mandy. Good morning to Carl and Rowan, Glenn, Z, all of you guys and girls in the chat box. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. Really do appreciate you tuning in. And if you could, drop a like on the video and subscribe if you are indeed new around here. I've got a little bit of a head cold. I feel like it's kind of there. So I'm going to try and mute myself as I try and keep the contents of my nose inside my head, so you don't hear me sniffing constantly. So I'll do my best to spare you of that noise. But you see a little... That's what I'm doing, just so you're fully aware. Anyway, let's jump into today's stories, and we begin. Where else can we begin? But other than last night's Champions League action, we'll run through these results and, of course, look ahead to tonight's games in the competition, of course, as well. In the early kickoff in Istanbul, Galatasaray managed to secure a 1-0 win over Liverpool, and I have to say, there's no doubt in my mind that this should have been a more comfortable, more impressive victory for the Turkish team. Because, have you seen the offside call? Can anyone explain to me why Galatasaray's second goal was ruled out for offside? Because I'm still watching it back and I still have not yet found the explanation for why it was ruled out. Some of you may be able to help me. Some of you may be able to see what I'm not seeing, but there's no doubt in my mind that Galatasaray should have come away with this with much more than just a single goal lead. And of course, I think there was a few people that were predicting actually Galatasaray to knock Liverpool out of the competition. And we may end up seeing that as a potential reality as well. So let's wait and see. The second leg, of course, played at Anfield. Will they manage to come from behind? We, being in Germany, had actually after the press conference in the Bayer Leverkusen stadium, the Bayer Arena, there's like a hotel in the stadium, and downstairs is like a big bar and a restaurant and loads of televisions where you can watch the football. So a lot of us who were there last night went down to watch the games. And obviously, being in Germany, the big game that was on was the Bayern Munich Atalanta game. They had like the highlights of the other games that were going on as well, but Bayern was the main game. So we watched the majority of the Bayern-Atalanta game. And I tell you what, no Harry Kane. I don't think Luis Diaz started. I might be wrong. But what an incredible performance, really, from them. Scary good. Very. Mikel Arteta is some player. What a brilliant footballer he is. Luis Diaz did start that game on the left-hand side. I didn't feel like he was that involved. But Nicholas Jackson started up top. Serge Gnabry in the 10. Elise on the right. Kimmich and Pavlovic. It's just a very, very impressive team. And they are going to be very, very, very hard to beat. But Arsenal will not have to face Bayern Munich until, potentially, if they get there, the final. So that is the remedy to that, if you will. But if Bayern is in Arsenal's future, it would mean that Arsenal have got all the way to the final. It does mean if Manchester City go through in their last 16 game, they will play Bayern Munich in the last 8. Newcastle managed to hang on. I say hang on, it's more the other way around. Barcelona are the team that managed to claw back a 1-1 result against Newcastle at St James's Park. Newcastle were the better team in the game. I don't think there's too much debate about that. And they were well worthy of their goal. Harvey Barnes at the end of the game scoring. But a really poor decision in the box, not from the referee, but from the Newcastle team in how they defended and gave away a penalty. I think it was Malik Chor, wasn't it, who gave away the penalty. But it's such a shame, really. And, you know, when Aaron Ramsdale's facing a penalty, you tend to know what the end result of that is going to be. And in this case, it was no surprise that Lamine Yamal stepped up and scored to make it 1-1, which is probably advantage Barcelona as they return to the Camp Nou next week with that 1-1 scoreline, knowing that Newcastle to go through, other than winning on penalties, will have to try and get a positive result in Catalonia. So we'll wait and see on the result of that. The other game, the final game that took place last night, which is the best of all, is Atletico Madrid's 5-2 victory over Tottenham Hotspur. Has there been a funnier moment than this, but I watched them against Crystal Palace and that was pretty funny as well. So I'm just trying to get in my mind the right words. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to give you the words that will perfectly sum up just how entertaining Tottenham Hotspur have been for us as fans of anyone other than Tottenham Hotspur. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, how do you feel about the idea of Kinski in this game? Yes, he was dreadful. Yes, he made 2 big mistakes. Yes, he cost them 2 goals. But one of their defenders slipped over as well for the first goal, and that led to Griezmann scoring his first of the game, you know. So they sub off the goalkeeper after 17 minutes. 21-year-old, I think, 22 years old goalkeeper. Subbed off, Vicario comes on, concedes 2 more. How did you feel seeing that? Yes, after you were done laughing, how did you feel about that young goalkeeper being dragged off? Is that the right decision? Did they make the right choice? Did Judah make the right choice in taking him off? There's a few clips going around of Christian Romero coming over and speaking to Igor Tudor supposedly before that substitution was made. I don't know if it was a request from the captain to have that change made, but yeah, let me know how you feel, because I was kind of caught. It was initial laughter, certainly. Like, I can't believe it, they're taking him off, and then also like, you know, he went straight down the tunnel. I mean, that's arguably career-ending, right? Can you recover from that? I mean, who remembers Loris Karius? I mean, Loris Karius is a goalkeeper who had an absolutely horrendous time at Liverpool and was so hugely costly in Liverpool's failure to win that competition. His career never really recovered, you know, from that point. He made 29 appearances for Liverpool in those 6 years that he was there. He went on loan to Besiktas, where he did play for a couple of years, but then he went to Union Berlin, played 4 times, went to Newcastle, played once. I think he had a bit of a mare at Newcastle in his very few appearances there as well. And went to Schalke, where he remains now, and he is playing for Schalke in the 2nd division of German football. But these moments can have really big impacts, you know, on people's careers. Was it right for him to be dragged off after 17 minutes? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that was the right decision for a young goalkeeper. Maybe it would have been better to give him the opportunity to redeem himself in the game rather than just subbing him. But you'd have to let me know in the comment section what you thought. Kelt says, I laughed some more. Claire says, I feel for him. Dee says, I'm still not done laughing. Paco says, what do you mean done laughing? Franklin says, I felt sorry for him. It was bad man management. Curtis, though, said he was clearly not up for it. Verminator says it could be character building. B-Max says, same way that we felt maybe when Tavares was taken off. It's not a bad shout, but it is certainly still, you know, I think a point in time for a player's career at 22 years of age. Yeah, Very, 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 very bizarre. Maybe it'd be an interesting one to hear what Arteta would thought about it, considering, he took off Nuno Tavares in that moment for Kieran Tierney and made that change. But the thought process behind making that decision. But tonight's Champions League games, of course, Arsenal are the early kickoff, 5:45 UK time, 6:45 here in Germany. PSG taking on Chelsea, Glimt taking on Sporting, and Real Madrid taking on Manchester City. They are all the 9 p.m/8 p.m. if you're back in the UK kickoffs. They're all the games going on tonight. And as I say, yes, I am here in Germany for Arsenal's game against Bayer Leverkusen. And I was not at the open training session, but a certain Mr. Charles Watts was there. And he was there to provide details and insight into who, what, and where. And who, what, and where that we saw was that Leandro Trossard and Ricardo Calafiori were back in training. Zubimendi, Rice, Saliba, Gabriel, all back in training. Really positive news. Ben White wasn't there, but then, as pictures emerged of the squads travelling to the plane to fly out to Germany, we see here Ben White with the squad. Ben White has appeared. Ben White is available. Maybe. Whether he's here and he's going to play, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But he's here. He's travelled. Whether or not he can be involved, we will have to wait and see. But certainly Ben White has been missed. I think that we really do need him back. I think it's good ahead of the FA Cup game after the international break. If he can be available and fit for that game, that'll be really beneficial for us so that we can give Timber some rest. And, Marley Salmon, really great talent. He also has travelled. But, against Southampton, is that too big of a step for him to start? I'm not so sure. But it was good to see Ben White there and available. We spoke to Kai Havertz yesterday as well. You can watch back, of course, the full clips of that online and the interviews. I asked him about the competition that he now has with his best mate in the team, of course, is Martin Odegaard. And now, since coming back, he started to play a little bit more in that attacking midfield role. And so I asked him about what it's like when you're competing, not just for the same position as one of your teammates, but competing with who is effectively your best mate in the team and what that dynamic is like as well. But the focus, there was a lot of questions on his injuries, which I didn't want to ask more and more questions about the injuries. There was enough on that. But that was definitely the takeaway from the press conference, was his thoughts on having come back from injury. And he said, for me, it was tough because I never felt that pain before in my life, and it just came randomly. Obviously, having 2 surgeries is not easy, but I think I'm professional enough to know that it's also part of football sometimes. And I know that there are so many players out there that went through stages of their career also. I'm still young, so a lot of years hopefully in front of me, but obviously mentally it was tough. I'm confident, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling better. Obviously things can always happen, but I'm feeling 100% ready to play the games. I'm feeling fit, and I can't wait to help the team in the next couple of months. But asked about kind of the whole ordeal of watching from the sidelines, he said, 100% I was frustrated. That feeling that you have after games, being with the boys in the dressing room, I missed it so much. And that's why also it was mentally so hard for me, because they wouldn't be there. And I think that just gave me a new hunger as well. I think that when you're looking at an element of the mental fatigue a player can have being out injured, it could no doubt take its toll. Speaking from personal experience, remember when I did my ACL when I was younger, playing football at university, and that was like really early on in the second year of uni. I was playing football pretty much every single week, and then all of a sudden I couldn't play football. And that, from a purely casual point of view, the mental impact of not being able to play football, and I didn't have surgery for around 3 years after that actual injury, and I had to wait a long time. These guys wait a couple of weeks, if that, to have surgery whenever they suffer an injury. Waiting 3 years to then have surgery and then go through rehab and then building up confidence, of course, to play again. Very, 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 very frustrating for players. And the mental side of that, I imagine, can take a really serious kind of toll on the team. Mikel Arteta, of course, did come in then and speak to us following that press conference chat with Kai. And on Team News, he confirmed that Odegaard is still out. He said that Trossard and Calafiori, the possibilities that they'll be available. We'll see tomorrow if they're going to be fit. Saliba and Gabriel, yes. Rice and Zubimendi, yes, both of them are fit. He was asked about Miles Lewis-Skelly and obviously the fact that he started 6 of the 8 Champions League games. But he's found it harder to get minutes in the Premier League. Kind of what's the reason for that? And because of last season, have you had to manage his expectations a little bit? And he says, yeah, every season is different. He had very good moments in this season. He had other moments where he hasn't played in that much. Obviously, a few days ago in the FA Cup, he was suspended and he could not play. So there are various reasons. Sometimes as well, the good form of your teammates. There's a lot of factors that contribute to that, but he's doing well, Mikel Arteta said. Obviously, you may have seen my report yesterday, just around this, the kind of the latest on both of those, if you want to read kind of the detailed latest, if you like, about what's going on with Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly. Certainly my understanding that there are a lot of clubs, both in England and in Europe, that are looking very closely at both Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly's situations ahead of the summer transfer window. There is a lot of interested parties that recognise they are two players that are not playing regularly for Arsenal at the moment. And certainly from an Arsenal point of view, while they've only just recently renewed their contracts, there is a sense that if Arsenal were to get a serious bid for either of those two players, it's not one that would be rejected out of hand, that Arsenal would certainly be considering fair and significant offers if indeed they came in. But that's the reality of it. No, Arthur, I didn't ask a question yesterday in the press conference. It was a very hectic press conference. I asked Kai a couple of questions, but I was quite busy during the press conference transcribing and typing. There's been some changes at the company recently, which means that we're quite tight timeline-wise. So I actually didn't get an opportunity to ask the question because I was already working while the press conference was going on. So hopefully after the game, but not yesterday. No, Mikey, I'm certainly not selling off our players. I'm just giving you the latest on what is going on with both Ethan and Miles and kind of what the situation is now. Obviously, yes, it does spark a reaction. It did spark some backlash. I'm expectant of that. It's bizarre, of course. I'm only just reporting you what the latest is from my understanding of the situation, but certainly you're always going to get a little bit of heat for anything that you write these days, it seems. Just a few more from what Arteta was asked about, and he was asked also about the team being in a different place. I think it was James Ollie asking the question, do you think that this is a team that is in a different place, that it belongs at this level, having established yourself at the business end of this competition? He says, I believe so. This is football and you have to show it tomorrow night. I know that you have to be so clear what the team is going to demand. You need to perform on the day. Champions League is about the day. Within the day, there are moments you have to be better than the opponent. And there was this whole vibe about, is this the year? Is there an element of kind of like this idea that, have you learned from previous seasons? Is this going to be a different version of Arsenal, if you like, about what we've seen from them? And he was asked the question about what are the learnings from kind of this press conference from those previous seasons. He says, yes, you learn all the things that you did well and the reason why you are there. There are different things that you can improve, but then every game and every time will be so specific, and that's so difficult to replicate. You have certain memories, but actually you have to apply your learnings in that moment. That window is very small and you have to be very different. And I thought that was quite interesting, because the reality is that those moments that have cost Arsenal, so against PSG, against Bayern Munich, the season before that, when we conceded, they're very specific moments where Arsenal have conceded goals. Will those situations arrive again, and will we react differently to them this time around? We'll have to wait and see. But they are very specific experiences. But it's just the broader, more general experience of playing at this level of the competition, beating the likes of Real Madrid, getting to a semi-final of the Champions League. All of those things, of course, can be very beneficial and helpful to the team. There was one more question. I don't know the name of the person who it was in the press conference. I believe they are from Tanzania, asking the question. They said, Arsenal are flying high, doing very well in the Premier League and playing brilliant football in the Champions League. The fans are dreaming again. They've lived through this moment before, though, where everything looked possible but somehow slipped away. As the leader of this project, do you sometimes have a fear that everything could somehow slip away? Or do you genuinely feel that this group of players could write a different story for Arsenal Football Club? And Arteta said, I live in the present and I prepare to do what I expect and what I feel every single day with optimism, putting everything that I have and trying to transmit and inspire those players to feel the same way. This is football. We have to do it. There is so much to do. There is a lot that we have done, but the important part is coming now, and it starts tomorrow. And it was this idea, of course, around, you're not lingering on the past. We're not thinking about what has happened. We are thinking about what we are going to do next. If you have fear of what you haven't achieved, of what has happened before, then you're not going to be able to move past that. So putting all that aside, Arsenal are ready to go into the next phase of this competition. If you're ready to take your internet security, though, to the next phase, there is only one potential outcome and offering that I need to make sure that you are very much in the know about. And that is, of course, NordVPN. And by going to nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2 year plan with 30-day money back guarantee. If you're not happy with the service for whatever reason, you can enact that. That is your right. When you sign up, of course, make sure you check all the terms and conditions, though, on the NordVPN website. There is it's obviously an award-winning VPN service that enables you to change your geo-digital location at any of those particular territories that are supported by Nord. So I'll be using my NordVPN service while I'm here in Germany, hopping back digitally to the UK to make sure that I don't miss out on any of the videos that are only available over there in the UK, such as, the highlights, of course, of all the Champions League games, only available while I'm here back in the UK, so I can make sure my phone digitally thinks that it is. But thank you so much for always supporting us. Right, let's go to part 2, some of your questions and more right after this. Right, this is part 2 of today's show, and get some of your thoughts, questions, theories, queries, and more. So let's go to Martin. Says, Zinchenko has been injured and his contract was running down. Maybe we should have renewed it with no contract equals kind of no value. Well, I think obviously when it comes to Zinchenko, he's going permanently to Ajax. And what we talk about is kind of renewal. I don't think it necessarily would have benefited either him or us. So I don't think that was necessarily the right view of it. Dee says it's so short-sighted to sell our best young talent. For starters, who do you sell to? Do you strengthen competition, or do you sell them and spend money on new transfers? But you could have saved that by keeping them instead. The reality is it's not short-sighted. It's actually something that a lot of very successful clubs do on a very regular basis. Sometimes players who come through the ranks just aren't, the pathway isn't there. The pathway isn't visible. The pathway isn't available. And we have an attachment, of course, to our young stars that are coming through. Naturally, we don't want to see Ethan Nwaneri go. We don't want to see Miles Lewis-Skelly go. But the reality is if they're not getting enough minutes, they can't get into the team on a regular enough basis, then if Arsenal can get a really significant fee for those players, then that's really beneficial for them, to do that. And Arsenal do need to sell much, much better than they have done. We can't have our cake and eat it. We can't complain that Arsenal are not good enough at selling and then be, hoarding, if you like, the young talent for longer, and their value diminishes and goes down. So they've managed to sign those 2 players up to brand new contracts. They've retained their value, improved their value. And if there is no pathway for them, I mean, if you're being very honest, you've got Odegaard, you've got Eze, you've got Havertz, you've got Marino, you've got Saka, so many players who can play in that attacking midfield role. And now we've got Max Dowman coming through. If you can give minutes to Dowman or Nwaneri, who are you giving those minutes to? Who are you going to give those minutes to? It's going to be Dowman. It's not about writing players off. It's about just what happens in this world of football. You look at Cole Palmer, you look at Oscar Bob more recently at Manchester City as examples of players that have left. If you go back through the years of those players at Liverpool, at Chelsea, at Man City that they have sold, those clubs haven't suffered as a result of those players leaving. Sometimes those players have gone on to do bigger and better things. Cole Palmer, you would say, has taken his stock to a whole new level at Chelsea. But we can't get stuck in this cycle. If Arsenal get offered huge money for either of those 2 players, it's going to be very hard to turn that down, because the reality is that a player like Ethan Nwaneri, for example, you're just probably not going to see him make it. If you're asking me right in this moment, right here, right now, will Ethan Nwaneri make it at Arsenal? I don't think so. Based upon what we've seen, based upon the competition for those places, based upon Dowman coming through, all those factors makes me believe that right now it's going to be very difficult for Ethan Nwaneri to make it at Arsenal in the long term. It's not a criticism of him. It's not reductive. It's just, being objective about the situation and realistic about the situation as well. And if Arsenal get a huge bid for Ethan Nwaneri, if someone was to come in with £50 million for Ethan Nwaneri, I mean, I think you'd be mad to turn £50 million down, right? They're already on really big wages as well. You have to remember, significant wages these players are already on at a very young age as well. If they stay and their value diminishes more and we struggle to sell them, it could end up being more detrimental. We have to be better. We have to be better. Kingsley says they said the same thing about Saka with the convo between Saka and Smith Rowe. You can never know. The same things were not being said about Saka as what is being talked about Nwaneri now. It's not the same. Those two are very, very different. Samuel says, lineups, Tom. Yes. How do we feel about lineups ahead of today's game? I think it's going to be full strength, right? I think we're all expecting the most from this Arsenal team. Urias, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Nkapie, Rice, Zubimendi, Eza, Saka, Gyökeres, Trossard. That's certainly what I'm expecting. I'm expecting a very full-strength 11 from Arsenal this evening. Vishal says, it hurts to say, but academy talents get a very small window to show significant impact. If the spark is big enough, they make it. Saka, of course, for example, took his shot. Jake says, Maitland-Niles is a good example of what can happen when you don't sell at the right time or you end up overvaluing a player. D says, ESR, I assume it was, Emile Smith Rowe, wasn't Nwaneri's level at his age, nor MLS's level. Yes, he was. Emile Smith Rowe, if it wasn't for a couple of injuries at the start, had incredible. I think you might be misremembering a little bit, D, because we went on loan to RB Leipzig at a very young age. So he got injured while he was there. The talent that was then on show when he went to Huddersfield on loan, of course, as well after that, and then broke into the Arsenal team at below the age of 20. Smith Rowe was incredibly talented. He broke into the Arsenal team and became a regular starter. It was easier, of course, I think, for him to break in based upon who the competition he had at the time. But still, he broke into that Arsenal team below, I think, the age of, 20, and ended up making Arsenal a tidy profit. But he was worth so much more when he first broke in. That 30-ish million quid that we ended up getting for him, if we would have sold him, within a year, and we shouldn't have done. I don't think it was the right decision to say sell him earlier. I think we sold him at a time when we probably had to sell him, and that was really the only window that Arsenal had to sell Smith Rowe. But had he have been sold like 2 years before that, I think Arsenal would have got. I think we saw Aston Villa came in with some really. I think they went up to 35-40 million pounds for Smith Rowe, and we turned that down, and we should have done. We were right to turn that down. That wasn't enough money for him, at that time. I think he was easily a 50+ million pound player, similar to what I'm saying now, about Ethan Nwaneri. I think Ethan Nwaneri, the more I think about it, 40 million pounds plus, we should probably be looking for. Miles Lewis-Skelly, it's interesting to me that people don't rate Miles Lewis-Skelly as valuable, that's the word, as much value as Nwaneri. Because of Lewis-Skelly and Nwaneri, only one of those players became a Premier League regular at Arsenal. Only one of those players became an England international. Only one of those players has scored for England at the senior level. Only one of those players, as I say, established themselves at the Premier League level. And that was Miles Lewis-Skelly. That wasn't Ethan Nwaneri. So it always kind of makes me think a little bit about why. I think because he's a defending player, and obviously Nwaneri's an attacking player. I think that sometimes gets into our heads a little bit, but it always surprises me when people value MLS lower than Nwaneri. Akin says, thank you for the donation. Unpopular opinion. If a big offer comes in for Ødegaard and Nwaneri, I would sell the captain and keep Nwaneri. I feel it depends on the offer and for who. Depends on, as I say, it depends on the offer. It depends on what a silly offer is. And the reality is that what we're thinking about as kind of a silly offer is probably not there. Jay says, I think they both can get the same transfer fee, but the concern with Miles Lewis-Skelly is that he had dropped off defensively, and I can't see him breaking into the midfield at Arsenal. D says, we haven't even seen Miles Lewis-Skelly in his natural position yet, and you're not going to, D. You're not going to see him in that position. The reality is you're not going to see Miles Lewis-Skelly play in midfield for Arsenal on anywhere near a consistent enough basis to ever get a value of what he's like in midfield. And also, I know that this is what's said all the time, that this is his natural position is midfield because he played a lot of games in midfield at youth level. The reality is, if we're being really blunt and objective about it, he is a left back. He came through at Arsenal as a left back. He got his England call up as a left back. He has established himself as a Premier League level player as a left back. He hasn't done that as a central midfielder. He's never done that at the senior level as a central midfielder. And we have no evidence besides those performances playing at youth level in midfield that is A, feasible, B, that he's good enough for that position, or C, that he can firmly establish himself in that role over a long period of time at the highest level. We have no evidence of that. So whenever I see these kind of comments like we haven't seen Miles Lewis-Skelly play midfield yet, we haven't seen him in his natural position. His natural position is a left back. That's where he's played all of his senior football. That's where he's got his England call up for that position. That's where every single part of his game has been played at that senior level. We don't know if his natural position is actually midfield. So when people say it like it's fact, I can't get to that same, I can't be on that level with you because the reality is we don't know that. Because players playing positions at youth level is not to say that is their position and their best position they would ever play at senior level. It's night and day. You know, Max Dowman went through kind of like phases of seeing what role he might play. He was playing at the senior level on the right when he first broke in, but now we've started to see him play in the middle a bit more. But at Arsenal, you've got Declan Rice, you've got Mikel Merino from when he gets back at the end of this season. You've got Eze who can play left eight. Max Dowman's going to be an option in box-to-box midfield and attacking midfield moving forwards. Arsenal want to sign someone there, is my understanding, is that Arsenal want to add another box-to-box midfielder, maybe a Sandro Tonali. Comes in the summer. Miles Lewis-Skelly is not going to play in midfield for Arsenal. So if we're holding out this hope that the reason why you keep him is because he can then play box-to-box midfield, you might see it in a cup game if we get a lucky draw, as we have been doing, this season. But the reality is that we're probably not going to see him in that position for Arsenal. The reality is. Rakesh says, just puts things into perspective for someone like me who watches the game and may not know what actually happens, of course, on the inside. It's very, and I'll know a little bit more than you guys just because of being in the business that I'm in, knowing what goes on behind the scenes. But it's still like it's just a little bit under the surface of the tip of the iceberg that you guys see from outside. And so that little kind of instinct or little kind of insights that we get that give us kind of a peek below the surface at the larger picture of what the iceberg actually looks like, it's still a very small percentage of the reality. We still don't know what's going on, everything behind the scenes. We still don't know everything that's here. And we have to make our opinions based upon, those realities, if you like. Kirill, thank you so much for the kind donations. I don't agree with defensive argument. We have at least 6 or 7 players, including Raya, who are helping defend with the team. And so Waneri, for me, does fine. What defensive argument, Kirill? Sorry, I'm not quite following. Curtis says, and that's why we're here. I appreciate you being here, Curtis. I do. Amberly says, Arteta sees him every single week in training. It's the same as all of the shouts for Zinchenko in midfield. But if it was a good option, he would have done it. Ben White, the exact same. How many times did we sit 3 years ago on this show with loads of people saying, play Ben White in midfield, play him at defensive midfield, play him in 6. Arteta's there every day. He sees them in training. He sees them in games. He sees them off the pitch. He sees every single little bit of insight possible. The only time when he's gone to use Miles Lewis-Skelly in midfield was that cup game against Wigan. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see it really that often because Calafiori got injured in the warm-up and he had to go back and play left back. So, unfortunately, it just doesn't feel like it's going to happen. Nassau says, Saka didn't break through as a right winger. He broke through as a left back too. Miles Lewis-Skelly is a natural midfielder. He's better than Marino in the position. His MLS broke through all the left back just like Saka. Yeah, but tell me what happened when we played European games. Tell me what happened when we weren't playing Premier League games with Saka. So while he was playing left back at the Premier League level, because we lacked the options there, what happened every single time we played a cup game or a European game? Saka wasn't playing left back. Under Unai Emery, under Arteta, when the opportunity was there to play Saka in those cup games, in those European games, he started playing in those wide positions. Gradually, it would, Miles Lewis-Skelly throughout his whole season last season, of course this season as well, we have not seen it. And Saka was younger than Miles Lewis-Skelly. Now, Miles Lewis-Skelly's 19 now. Saka was already playing in those wide positions as a 17-year-old at the senior level. So you're painting part of the picture, but you're leaving out quite a lot of what has actually happened. Priyanka says, why do you think that we need to sell our young players? We'll sell them for 30 million max. Do you think it's an equivalent player for the same cost? I don't necessarily think I agree that we'll sell them for 30 million pounds max. I don't necessarily think that that's definitely what will happen. But the reality is that Arsenal will need to sell in the summer. It won't necessarily have to be Nwaneri or Lewis-Skelly. It could be Ben White. It could be Gabriel Jesus. It could be Gabriel Martinelli. It could be Leandro Trossard. It could be Christian Norgard. It could be Kepa. It could be some players that are maybe surplus to requirements. The reality is that Arsenal will have to sell in the summer. The reason why they're going to have to sell in the summer is because financially, we're already going to have to go and put the money on the board for Hincapié. So that's 45 million quid. It's going to be coming out. Arsenal didn't make any money through player sales last year. Our financial books this year still were at a loss, despite the fact that we made 80 million plus in player sales, and we didn't have anywhere near that this summer just gone. And in combination with that, we spent more than we have ever spent before in a single window. To comply with UEFA FFP and the squad cost ratios, if Arsenal want to spend significantly this summer window, they are going to have to sell players. It's also because of room. Like there's an issue of room as well. So that is also an element to it. We could even sell our captains as Gunnar. I don't think we will, but absolutely we could. 100%. This is, I agree, Tom, on the MLS stance. I also have the perspective of working in football business and development and from playing in academies. So I do see both sides, but I admit bias towards young talent. And that's absolutely fair and grounded of you, dear. And I was in the same place. It's hard to put aside your desire for these players to do so well. And I like you, have a huge desire for Smith Rowe and Nketiah and Willock of the past to have succeeded. And they didn't. And the same way I have a huge desire now for Lewis-Skelly and Nwaneri to succeed. I'd love for them to succeed. I'd love for them to get a pathway. I'd love for them to become world-class players and play for Arsenal, establish themselves. I'd love for that to happen. But I have to be grounded enough to know and objective enough to know that the reality is probably at this point going to be different. But it's very natural, as Rakesh says, to have bias. It's so natural. So this isn't an argument. This is just a discussion about the reality of the situation with both of those players. Cass says, I can understand Miles Lewis-Skelly being sold, but watching one of Fabrizio Romano's videos, he said that Ethan is still rated highly. I mean, that's not in question. Both players are rated incredibly highly at Arsenal. That has never stopped. That doesn't stop now. The club appreciates both of those players hugely, and they hope, again, that they can succeed. But also, they're realistic about the reality of both of those players and what might happen in the coming years as well. Angorman says, what are you going to say if there are young players coming through that are better? Well, I mean, we've kind of got that reality, haven't we? Because I think Max Dowman is going to be better than Ethan Nwaneri. I don't think that's a controversial take. I don't think that's going to really, throw the cat amongst the pigeons. And we have a reality where a player like Max Dowman is coming through. We also, in the case of Miles Lewis-Skelly, are seeing pretty strong links with another young left-back in the market, Valdepeñas at Real Madrid. Those links are real. That interest in real. They've scouted him significantly. And if Arsenal are looking at a 19-year-old left-back, having committed to signing Hincapié, showing no signs of letting Calafiori go, I mean, what does that say about Lewis-Skelly's future? So, I think there's enough signs there. I think from what I've heard, I think this season has hit Miles really hard. I think the reality of having everything last season, getting into that position, playing so many games, to not this season, I think that's hit him really hard. I think he's taken that really hard. And I understand and empathise why you would take that really hard, because you've been given everything, right? You've been given the dream as a young footballer, playing for a title challenging team, playing for your boyhood club, getting a call up to England. He got everything, like everything a footballer could dream of at 18 years of age. Miles Lewis-Skelly got it. And in this season, it's just kind of like gone and flitted away and disappeared. Not completely, but significantly. And that must be really hard to take. Really, really difficult to take. So, yeah, I empathise with his position 100%. Right, let's scroll up because I think I probably missed some comments. John says, sorry if you spoke about this on another show, but what were your thoughts on Rodri's fine and the non-suspension, considering others have been suspended for similar offences? So what is the other examples of this? Because I've seen some people say that other players have done exactly what Rodri did and have got bans for it. So what are those other examples? Because I'm not aware of them. I've not been working the couple of days before the ban. When the ban happened, I wasn't actually working on that day either. So I've not dug into the story too much. What are the other examples? Specifically for players, like what have players said? What are the other comparisons? In my opinion, honestly, like from what he said, I think what he said certainly implied bias, in my opinion. But they've not seen it that way. The arguments that have been put across by him and by, and the empathy that's been shown by the FA, they don't agree. So others are saying Gibbs White and Van Dijk. Well, what did Gibbs White and Van Dijk say specifically? And what were their punishments, respectively, for what they said? So, we need to go off the facts and the evidence. We can't just go off vibes. So Van Dijk suspended for bias referee. Let's see if anything comes up. The Van Dijk has been hit with an additional suspension and a £100,000 fine by the FA for verbally abusing match officials. Van Dijk's been suspended. Defender admitted that he acted in an improper manner and used abusive and insulting words. Okay, so Rodri didn't do that. So that's Van Dijk's argument done. Who's the other one? Gibbs White. What did Gibbs White do? Gibbs White suspended. I'm not seeing anything about Gibbs White. Gibbs White banned after ill-tempered draw with Brighton. Okay, let's have a look what was said. Gibbs White was shown a second yellow card by referee Rob Jones after. Okay, so he's got a second yellow. So obviously that does bring in a ban. So what did Gibbs White say supposedly? Yeah, I'm pretty sure Van Dijk was suspended for abusing the referee. Rodri didn't abuse the referee. Rodri, in my opinion, implied bias, which I do think should be worthy of a ban for the record. But people that are conflating other examples need to make sure that these other players have done the exact same thing to make those conflations. Because if you're making those conflations between different examples that are not the same, you're doing a disservice to the argument in itself. So yeah, I'm not quite sure if the examples that have been given are the same from what we've just looked at very quickly. And I may have missed something, and I apologise if I do. But yeah, let me know. Mike says, I understand what you're saying, Tom, but that fine is a bit of a farce. All fines in football are a bit of a farce, aren't they, Mike? Like, if we're honest, all the fines that we see are a real farce. Like when you see incidences of like racism or homophobia or whatever, discrimination of some type, and a player being found guilty of that and they get a fine, and then you see kind of the comparison to like betting and like what players can get for betting, like the bans associated with betting rules, as opposed to like being found guilty of being racist, and the fact that you can be banned for like half a season or a full season for breaching betting laws, but you get a fine and a couple of game ban or a handful of games ban. We all know it's a load of bollocks. Like, we all know that it's the weightings of these punishments make absolutely no sense. So, yeah, I think we all know that. Chloe says, in the heat of the moment, using bad language as opposed to waiting until the end of the game and raising the issue, but being calm enough to say so on and so forth. I get that, Chloe. But if we're going to, as I said before, it doesn't matter. Like, if we're going to say that so-and-so was banned for this, but they've not been banned for this, those two examples need to be the same. If they're not the same, then we don't have an argument. If two players have done the same thing and the punishments have been different, then we can have a discussion about that. But if the two things that have happened are different, then we can't have the conversation about them being conflated as the same thing. Says, did the club pay the fines? Good question. Not 100% sure. I think they'd probably take it out of the players' wages in some cases, or maybe the club will offer to. I think it'd probably do it on a case-by-case basis. John says, a lot appear to be by managers who have implied cheating by match officials like Arne Slot, Lampard and Everton, Jurgen Klopp. Again, we're going to need to know what was said. We're going to need to know how it compares to Rodri, and maybe it's different for players. I don't know. Curtis says, 2 players just banned for life in the MLS for betting on games they were involved in. Did they? MLS players banned. 2 Ghanaian players banned for life in shocking MLS betting scandal. Wow. Major League Soccer has announced lifetime bans for former players, Derek Jones and Yor Yeboah, for betting on league matches. An investigation found that the players engaged in extensive gambling on soccer, including on their own teams, during the 2024 and 2025 season. Yor Yeboah. He currently plays in China for Qingdao Hainu. I mean, he's 28 years of age. He's still pretty young. And the other one was Derek Jones. Where does he play now? Derek Jones played for Columbus Crew. He's 29. So is he the one that's been banned? Just double checking it's him. Because if it's not him, yes, in March 2026, Jones was issued a lifetime ban from playing in MLS after an investigation found that he and former teammate Yor Yeboah had bet on matches while playing for Columbus Crew. So, yeah, so I guess he's now former because he's been banned for life, so he doesn't have a team at the moment. And Yor Yeboah now plays in China. So that ban only covers the MLS, the Major League Soccer. It doesn't seem to extend beyond that. Whether other footballing bodies also encompass that, I don't know. But, yeah, look, I often, betting can be a disease. You know, the addiction of betting can be a disease, and is banning people for life the right outcome? Should instead you absolutely provide a consequence to those actions, and then maybe investigate further about does it go beyond that? Is there an addiction? Is it something that person needs help with? But like, when you see those significant bans for life, or a number of months or even years, compared to what some players have got for being found guilty of racism, for instance, it just makes no sense, does it? It just doesn't add up. Angerman says, you've just answered your own question. A higher ceiling, they would make more money on MLS than they would on Marino. I don't know what that's about. Sorry. Martin says, Tom, do you not think that basically accusing a referee of bias in itself is a form of abuse? When I refereed a player calls you a cheat, they were sent off for abusive language. Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument, but there is a distinction between the two in the law. You know, calling somebody a cheat they're being sent off these days for implying bias. They're not being sent off for abusive language in the game today, you know, in the Premier League. You know, it's a set rule, as opposed to abusive language is something separate. So they are two different examples. But if you're asking me, in my opinion, if the two things are quite similar, you could definitely make that argument. So I know what you're saying. Nassai says, Martin, he is versatile, but he is not a better footballer than Miles Lewis-Skelly, in my opinion. No way. Lewis-Skelly needs to be trusted. It's like if we played Marino at left back, he wouldn't perform as well. Who? Who isn't? I'm curious who we're talking about. Who are we suggesting is not a better footballer than Lewis-Skelly? I'm curious to know who you're talking about. Are you talking about Marino? Because if you're talking about Marino is a better footballer right now than Miles Lewis-Skelly. It's not even a debate. Marino is a brilliant footballer. He's currently the most influential player in the Spanish national side when fit. It's not a debate right now. Like, if you want to talk about like the technical abilities of players or the ability to play in different positions, I mean, Marino played up front for Arsenal against Real Madrid, scored in the Champions League. It's not even close. It's not a debate. There is no argument that Lewis-Skelly is a better footballer than Mikel Marino right now. He's also 10 years older than him. So to even think about having a seriousness debate about that is just bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. Does Lewis-Skelly potentially have the potential to be better than Marino one day? Maybe. Potentially. Possibly. That's not what if the debate is who is the better footballer, it's not even a question. Marino is on a different plane to Miles Lewis-Skelly. And that's not a criticism, Miles Lewis-Skelly, by the way. That's a 29-year-old veteran, Spain international, European quarterfinal goal scorer, Champions League against Real Madrid goal scorer as a centre forward playing out of position compared to Miles Lewis-Skelly, a 19-year-old youngster that's got a lot of promise. It's not fair to even have that conversation. It's not fair to even have that debate. D says Marino is on a different planet and cannot be compared against them. Ben Farris says betting on your own team is match fixing. Yeah, look, I don't think anyone's debated that betting is on your own team is not a despicable thing to do. It absolutely is. That is not what is that's not what is being debated here. That's not the debate at all, because it obviously is a despicable thing to do. No one's debating that point. Mikey says, if we are looking to raise funds and maximise on the fee, Ødegaard is arguably at that point with the age and the ability to make more sense to sell. Again, you would need a buying club. You would need to see what the offer is, and you would need to make it make sense. And right now, I don't think it makes sense personally, myself. I think we've missed Ødegaard hugely. I think Arsenal, at the level that they are, should be looking to keep their best players. And in my opinion, and I know not in all of yours, but in my opinion, he is without a doubt one of those. Let's go to Lachlan says, why would you sell your captain? Look, you have to admit that some people just don't like the guy. Some people are done with Ødegaard. Some people are finished with him. Some people don't rate him anymore. Some people don't think that he is what we need. And that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. I think you're wrong. And I think you're being proven wrong by his absence at the moment. And also by the fact that he's, I think, our second highest assister in the league. Still, despite all of the absences that he's had this season and all of the injuries that he's suffered, I think that he proves you wrong time and time again. But a lot of people think that Ødegaard should be sold. And again, I think you're wrong, but you're entitled to that opinion. Nassar says Marino is nearly 30. Miles Lewis-Skelly is 19. He's not better than him in midfield. I've watched Marino for years. He is not better than Miles Lewis-Skelly in midfield. That's my... you're entitled to that opinion. I think you're very wrong. And I think all of the evidence points to you being wrong. We've never seen Miles Lewis-Skelly at senior level in midfield once. And yet to claim that he's better than a Spain international starting midfielder, I think is nuts. But fair enough. If you can back up that point of view, fair enough. Let's go to but Nuclear Disaster says, I can't lie, I'm finished with him, but that's just my opinion. Yeah, and other people are, and I think you're nuts too. I can't get my head around it. I really can't get it. It's mad to me. Arthur says, Tom, I listened to a watch along on the Spurs game. I started laughing with expressions of Deji initially, but stopped and realised that all of them were hurting so bad. Jamie O'Hara was suffering visibly. I don't think that would stop me laughing. They're suffering as Spurs fans for supporting Tottenham. And if you have any sympathy for Jamie O'Hara, go and watch what he did when Spurs played Man City to stop Arsenal winning the league. sat there wearing a Manchester City shirt. I mean, that man deserves no sympathy. Look beyond that. That man deserves no sympathy at all. Tyrell says, I think Odegaard's time is up, Tom, and I think we should be looking to move him on in the summer. I get to the point where I think people are just trying to wind me up almost at this stage. It's mad to me. Absolutely mad. Cheech says, what is Miles Lewis-Skelly's future position in the team? If it is anywhere in this team, it's left back for me. If Lewis Skelly is going to make it at Arsenal, it'll probably be at left back because I don't see it being in midfield. Just saying says, have no sympathy for Abbey or O'Hara. Horrible people, says just saying in their opinion. Nasai says, we have seen Miles Lewis-Skelly playing midfield for England. Have we? I mean, I'll hold my hands up if I'm wrong, but have we? Let me just double check. Let me just double check if we have seen him play. I don't think we have. It says here, against Albania when he scored, left back for 90 minutes. Against Latvia, left back for 79 minutes. Against Senegal, left back for 88 minutes. Against Andorra, left back for 90 minutes. Against Wales, left back for 10 minutes. Against Latvia, 90 minutes, left back. So in which game did we see Miles Lewis-Skelly play for England in midfield? When did we see that? Anybody know? He didn't play for England's under-21s. He never played for the England under-21s, so it's not then. He went straight from the under-19s into the senior setup. So it wasn't for that. Just having a quick look at the under-19s is where he played for. He played defensive midfield for 76 minutes against Italy's under-19s in the Euro qualifiers. He played 90 minutes of defensive midfield for the under-19s against Bulgaria. So at senior level, we have never seen Miles Lewis-Skelly play in midfield. Not yet. So yeah, but don't let the facts get in the way of a good argument, eh? Jude says, I honestly can't understand the hate towards Odegaard. I feel that we have really missed him for controlling games and creating. He's still young and obviously never got back to full fitness since last year. And that's the issue this season, is that I think Arsenal would be more comfortable in where they are. I think we wouldn't have dropped points at Wolves. I think we would have been, if he'd have stayed fit to the end of the Brentford game. Obviously, he suffered that injury and played on. He shouldn't have done. If he hadn't got that injury, I think we would have been in a far better position to beat Brentford. I think that we would have helped see out games like against Chelsea, where we narrowly avoided, that result. The Brighton game, I think we would have far more control if he was available. Duperverse says, Odegaard has been average to poor for 3 of his 5 seasons at Arsenal. Wow. Okay. It's just like people just have the memories that are just so different to what the reality is. That's what I kind of struggle with a bit. It's just that I think people just misremember. I think people just have short memories. They don't really remember what actually happened. It is bizarre to me. It is really bizarre to me. If Mike says, what is wrong with our fans? Charlie says, that's cap. That's cap. 100%. Just quite simply, that's cap. No, I mean, that's the younger generations than me are using words like that, but I'm young enough to know what it means. And that's cap. 100%. It's just pure and utter cap. Absolute awful, absolutely horrible opinion. Oslo Goodness says, an injury-free Odegaard would help us a lot right now. Remember, he was player of the season for 2 years in a row. Let him come back from injury before you slander him. Clarissa, slight change of topic. How long then should the club cater to players not performing to their maximum ability or push to the bench and replace starters and fight for the position? I think that there are certain cases like Gabriel Jesus, like Martinelli, like Ben White. They're kind of the 3 that I look at and go, the contributions and the availability are of a certain level that I think that Arsenal would be better off probably looking to replace them. So Jesus, White, Martinelli are the three main ones for me. Martinelli is an incredibly frustrating player because he has got so much talent. The problem with Martinelli is that I have not seen a player from the ages of 19 to 24 go kind of like it's not really going up. It's like he had one spike and then kind of it's just been and the elements of Martinelli's game that have always frustrated me, which is decision making, finishing, execution, the final pass, the final touch, have just not shown enough improvement, if you know what I mean. Just not shown enough improvement, have not shown enough execution. And I think there's financial value to him. And I think if we're going to sell a left winger, I'd rather we got big money in for Martinelli, reinvested that into somebody else, and had Trossard as the number 2. I think Trossard is an excellent player off the bench. So if we invest in a starting left winger, I think we've got a perfect player in Trossard to be the other option. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Benjamin says, what about a fridge magnet? I've not been to the shop yet. I am planning on going today before the game. So hopefully fridge magnet will be secured today before the game. It's an early kickoff. Don't forget that, people. Wow, we're going for an hour. You've had me talking for over an hour. Incredible. So yeah, hopefully fridge magnet, fingers crossed, will be secured. Anyway, right. And Charlie Les says, going off topic, do you do any form of PC gaming? If so, what do you play? No, was not so much anymore, a console player. Although I have now moved to playing a lot of Nintendo Switch because on my travels, going up and down the country, having something I can play like handheld has been an absolute godsend. So I've been doing a lot of Nuzlocke recently. If you know, you know. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.